Hello, my name is Piero San Giorgio. I'm a Swiss author and writer. Welcome to Switzerland, welcome to my mountains and to my farm. I have been until recently international marketing manager for large software companies. And a few years back, I started to realize, just as a lot of people have, that the world we're going through is going to be very difficult in the next few years. And reading around many books, reading and interviewing many people, I figured out that we are in really difficult times for many reasons. So I wrote a book that came out in France in October 2011, which in French is Survivre à l'effondrement économique. A book that is having a lot of success today. After 7 months, without media promotion, just word of mouth and social networks, this book has already sold over 20,000 copies in France, mostly, here in Switzerland, in Belgium, and in French-speaking parts of Canada and Quebec. Probably the reason for the success of this book is people are, and rightfully so, scared and concerned about where the world is going. And the world is going into a very difficult places today. First of all, we are a lot of people. We used to be 1 billion people 150 years ago. We're now 7 billion. This number, along with the increasing consumption ways of life of all these people, are consuming raw materials, natural resources at an unprecedented speed and depleting them more and more. In the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to literally run out of easy and inexpensive, accessible raw material and natural resources, starting with petrol, oil. Cheap oil is going to disappear in the next 10, 15 years. And it's going to be the same for metals, for rare earths, for all sorts of materials that we need to make our world and our economies run. This is why my title includes Survivre à l'effondrement économique. Actually translated means survive to the economic collapse, because our economy is going to collapse from the lack of these resources in such a small amount of time. But it's not just that. We have to add to the scarcity of oil and natural resources other problems. What I call the collapse of the ecological niche, the ecological environment that enables our living. We see around the world that crop yields are decreasing because of the soils becoming less good quality, becoming used, and not having enough nutriments inside to grow enough plants. And yet we have to feed more and more people. So this is a strong element of my analysis. So lack of natural resources because of too many people. Because too many people and intensive agriculture, intensive food production, we start to have decrease of yields. We also start to have scarcity of water across the world, and mostly in countries that have high population growth, such as, for example, among many others, Egypt, Pakistan, and other places. But also in developed countries such as United States, south of Europe, for example, we have tremendous scarcity of water now because of also increased agriculture, industrial production of crops. And this, if you add the amount of pollution that we create, the amounts of waste that we throw in the environment, we are starting to destroy ecological niche of which we are part of. And therefore we start to have tremendous risks of collapse of the nature that feeds us. And again, we are now 7 billion, going to 8 and maybe 9 very soon. How are we going to manage this? And the consequences of these collapses are going to be immense. They're going to create famines, starvations, wars, mass migration to a level we have never seen. And if people think that there's been way too much globalization and way too much migration over the last 30 years, you have not seen anything yet. This is going to increase to tremendous pace and to tremendous numbers. And you have to still add to that the financial collapse that is inevitable now, and that is our own and proud construction of us people and finance, of the finance industry. So we have created a system that works on growth, and growth will never happen ever again, because there's not going to be energy, there's not going to be raw resources, and there's not going to be food to feed the people. So forget growth. And because there's not going to be growth, this system is inevitably going to collapse. And many people like Chris Mortensen and many other authors that I quote in my book are clear in explaining that. We are going to face inevitable collapse of the financial industry, of the debt, and that will lead collapse of the euro for Europe. It's going to lead to collapse of the dollar. That will mean, after a phase of deflation, probably in the next 1 or 2 years, a phase of very high inflation leading to hyperinflation and leading to the full collapse of that money, which is worse, not even the paper on which it's printed, if only the computers is actually printed in. So we're going to see full collapse. And that's the first 100 pages of this book. Now the question is, if the economy collapses totally, and globally, because it's the first time we have a global, interconnected economy, what's going to happen? What is going to be the reaction of people? And here is where a lot of sociology is needed. And I analyzed and interviewed a lot of sociologists, a lot of people who work in the field of social behavior, of groups and mass behavior. And whereas in the 1920s, when we had the last very large crisis, which actually led to war, and if you look at the strategies of the players in World War II, just as the strategy of United States, for example, in the last 40 years, the wars happened for resources, unsurprisingly. And United States is not intervening in Zimbabwe, for example, but United States and NATO is in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in maybe soon Iran, certainly Libya, and has bases around the world to control resources. It's inevitable. Empires struggle to survive because of lack of resources and energy. Anyway, the reaction of the people is important. And whereas in the 1920s people were disciplined, people were homogenic in terms of culture and even ethnicity in a way, today people are selfish. They are behaving like everything is owned, everything is due to them. And the reaction to scarcity, the reaction to lack of food, lack of heating, lack of oil, and certainly lack of jobs, and therefore money, as it starts already in the United States and parts of Europe, is going to be disastrous. I think people are going to turn into killers. They're going to slaughter themselves because food will become scarce in the cities. And this can be very fast, it can be overnight, or it can take many years, like it's happening in Greece, where the economy collapses and the social turmoil starts because people are getting unable to feed correctly their children. They're unable to pay the rent. They're getting more and more thrown out in the streets. And the social upheavals, potentially revolutions or civil wars in some cases, will happen in most of developed worlds and spread across the world. And the day the dollar collapses, the United States as economy is dead. And remove the United States from the world economy today, it means the world economy is dead. And by dead, I mean literally dead, with people starving without food because the supply chains that are just in time are not able to supply the people. So that I explain in the second part of the book, which is probably another 50 to 60 pages. But the biggest chunk of my book is about what you do about it. How do you survive to that? And there are many ways to survive. And there are good chances for people who are prepared, for people who know how to make themselves invincible and untouched by these things. Of course, this is an aim because everybody will be touched at some point. All our lives are going to change. So what I'm suggesting in the book is clearly to change your lifestyle. Not completely to lose your job and leave. Do it progressively, but change your lifestyle to a more simple life, probably to a life near to the real wealth, which is the land and the fruits of the land. So that means your garden, that means your water, etc. And the concept that I'm developing in my book is the concept of a base autonomous, and durable, the BAD. Base, autonomous, durable. Because you need to fix someplace. We need to rediscover what it means to live in the countryside. We need to rediscover what it means to live free, what it means to live independent from the system that feeds us and heats us. We need to be able to be autonomous of all the system and autonomous for all what is necessary to live. And it needs to be durable. It needs to be working over time, because you don't know how long this crisis is going to happen until the world finds a new balance, whether more complexity, which I doubt, or more simplicity, which I think is where we're going to. And to make this base autonomous durable function, you need 7 items. First of all, you need water. So I explain, obviously, how you make sure you get autonomy in terms of water, whether it's from sources of water like I do have in my farm, whether it's purifying water if you're in the city, or collecting water from the rain, etc. Second element is food. Get production of your own food in your garden, in as many places you can, but also how to store emergency food so that when such a crisis happens, you're not overwhelmed. And I give lists of that in the book, but also on my website, piero.com, and Piero is spelled Piero.com, where you can download for free a lot of lists of preparedness and how you get ready. Third element is health and hygiene. Good food, good exercise makes you healthy, but also how do you manage the hygiene around where you live? Basic stuff, but we need to learn that when doctors may not be around, how do you treat your illnesses? How do you treat basic little injuries? Things like that I explain in the book. Number 4 is energy. We need to generate our own production of electricity and heating to make sure, and hot water, because those are luxuries we are so used to have that it's going to be very difficult to ask people to live in caves or in the forest. So the survivalist movement, which is really interesting, I think has the limit toward the luxury part. And I think energy is the element. 5th element is, of course, culture. Because surviving is not enough. You need to survive as individual, as family, maybe as communities, but also to bring your culture forward. Take the culture that we have, the great things that your civilization, mine is Western civilization and European, clearly. We have to carry them forward. So that means book, know-hows, knowledge that we want to keep and store for future generations. Once you have that, you can start to actually not only survive, but you live. And this is very interesting. But you have 2 more things you need to cover. Number 6 is defense. You need to be able to defend yourself against the people that will become predatory. And for this, of course, you need weapons, which you always want to have in your farm. You need to have, or wherever you live, you can live in a base autonomous durable place in a city. It's harder, it's doable, but it's very hard. Obviously the countryside is better. So you need to be able to defend yourself, defend your family. And it's not only a duty, but it's a right. You have to defend yourself and defend your people. So according to the laws, of course, some countries have better laws than others to enable people to defend themselves. And I'm not talking aggression, I'm talking defense. So it means that you can be, in my case, I'm a very pacifist person, but I'm not non-violent. I will never aggress anyone. But if someone comes to my farm to try to harm me, my family, or my goods, which are going to enable my survival, I will defend myself to the highest possible degree and ruthlessly. Anyway, but that's not enough. The number 7, the 7th element of the creation of a base autonomous and base autonomous durable, maybe in English it will be a durable autonomous base, a DAB, we'll have to see, is the social link that you need to create with your friends, with your neighbors, with your community, so that you can start from one place where you can defend yourself and be autonomous to more and more larger places, to more and more people, and eventually you can build communities like transition towns does, but with the ability not only to be autonomous, not only to have your own food, not only to be independent and free from oil and supply systems, but also you will be able to defend yourself in a region, in a valley, in a country. Maybe make your country a super bad or super durable autonomous base. And this is the way I think you can survive in the future. And I've thought of this and I've built this over the last 7 years, 8 years now, and I don't see other ways that are realistic to make yourself and your family and your community survive through the turmoil that is coming in the next 10 years. And that will start, and is already starting. So the reason I wanted to make this video in English is that my book is very successful now in French, as this was the first language that I came out. And I'm actually looking for editors that are smart and that know they can have success in sales. So obviously there's a clearly materialistic element to that. But I'm clearly looking to translate this book in the next 6 months in English. So if you see this video and you know an editor, or you are yourself an editor, please contact me. And you can contact me on my website, piero.com, Piero.com. And obviously, we can discuss that. Otherwise, in the next 6 months, I will have time and I will translate it myself and auto-edit. And I think this is a great book, especially for English-speaking countries in Europe, such as UK. And, you know, UK is going to have serious problems. UK does not produce enough food to feed its people. And that's with modern techniques, with tractors, and that with fertilizers. Take out cheap oil, no more tractors, no more fertilizers. That means half of the people in Britain are going to starve. So if you don't get ready now, you're in trouble. And that's for Britain. But Scandinavia, Benelux, some parts of Eastern Europe, they will have also their own problems. So I think this book can be of good use and has a big market. So anyway, I wanted to translate it. So in the next 6 months, I will do it. But perhaps there's an editor who would like to do that before. Anyway, I just wanted to make this video in English and say bye-bye and cheers to everybody who's listening. And thanks for those who bought the book already. And I'll see you around. Ciao.